Welcome to the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge Improvements Project Open House Public Hearing. Tonight, we invite you to understand the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, process and project delivery schedule. See how the project alternatives were developed. Learn why the preferred alternative was recommended. Ask questions about the benefits and impacts related to the project. Get information about right-of-way acquisition and relocation assistance available for property owners and occupants. And make your voice heard as part of the public comment process. At the end of the draft EIS process, the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA, and the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, or LADOTD, intend to issue a combined final EIS and Record of Decision, also referred to as the ROD, as a single document. A public-private partnership, known as a P3, is an alternative form of project delivery that adds private sector financing to state and federal funds for the project. The P3 developer will perform final design and engineering and then operate the bridge project for a period of 40 to 50 years. The project corridor extends from I-10 at I-210 West End to I-10 at I-210 East End and is approximately 9 miles long. It crosses through the cities of Westlake and Lake Charles, which are connected by the Calcasieu River Bridge. The I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge, several overpasses, and the interstate between I-210 in Sulphur and I-210 in Lake Charles is proposed for reconstruction to meet current design guidelines to the extent practicable. The segment of LA 378, or Sampson Street, from I-10 to Sulphur Avenue would also be improved. Improvements to interchanges at I-210 West End, Sampson Street, Enterprise Boulevard, and US 171 are also part of this project. A complete range of alternatives was considered for this project. A screening process narrowed these down to 3 reasonable alternatives that were presented to the public in 2021. These alternatives have been evaluated in detail in the draft EIS. The EIS identifies a preferred alternative. The final alternative will be selected in the ROD. Throughout this process, stakeholder, agency, and public input has been considered. Any reasonable alternative must meet the purpose and need of the project, which consists of 4 aspects. A. Address the lack of system continuity on I-10 by adding lanes to be consistently 3 lanes in each direction. B. Reduce congestion and improve mobility on I-10 and along Sampson Street by resolving bottlenecks and delays at railroad crossings. C. Correct structural and functional roadway and bridge deficiencies by meeting design guidelines and replacing aging infrastructure. And D. Address safety concerns on I-10, including the Calcasieu River Bridge. During evaluation of these alternatives, it was determined that they would effectively address 3 of the 4 aspects. The alternatives would not meet D, the safety aspect of the purpose and need. Project team members at Station 3 can answer your questions about the project background and purpose and need for the project. Project team members at Station 4 can explain how these alternatives were developed. Large-scale drawings of alternatives 3A, 3E, and 5G can be viewed and discussed at Station 5. All alternatives would provide 3 through lanes in each direction, change vertical and horizontal alignments to improve traffic operations and eliminate bottlenecks, and replace aging infrastructure such as bridges and overpasses. All alternatives will widen the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge to 6 lanes at a minimum. Improvements at the west end and east end of the project corridor are common to all three alternatives. On the west end, common improvements include the I-10, I-210 interchange ramp and I-10 frontage roads. The US 90 overpass bridge will be removed. On the east end, common improvements include the interchange at Enterprise Boulevard and reconstruction of overpass bridges and frontage roads from Ryan to Opelousas Street. Some improvements to the interchange at US 171 will be made. We invite you to review drawings for the build alternatives at Station 5, where project team members are available to answer your questions. Alternative 3A makes no change to existing Sampson Street. The I-10 service roads on the southwest will be improved, but the way the ramps are configured will stay the same. Sampson Street will remain as is and at grade. Traffic on Sulphur Avenue and Sampson Street North will be able to avoid the two railroad crossings of Sampson Street by using an extension of Sulphur Avenue. A new movable bridge will be built over the river to connect to North Lakeshore in Lake Charles. This interchange provides only one eastbound on-ramp and one westbound off-ramp to and from I-10. North Lakeshore frontage roads will shift to the north along with the new I-10 alignment, but access will not change. Alternative 3E differs from Alternative 3A only in that the interchange at North Lakeshore will be complete. That is, drivers can enter or exit the interstate from all directions by way of an extension of Sulphur Avenue. They may also use I-10 to cross the river, entering or exiting at Sampson Street. Alternative 5G was designed to provide a compact and complete interchange at Sampson Street. Sampson Street will be elevated to meet the interchange above I-10, eliminating the need for a Sulphur Avenue extension and movable bridge to avoid the at-grade railroad crossings. Sampson Street at ground level will be demolished. Alternative 5G is recommended as the preferred alternative. The draft EIS provides detailed analysis of environmental effects, both beneficial and adverse. Copies are available for review at Station 8. You can also visit the LADOTD District Office located at 5827 US 90 in Lake Charles, or local libraries in Lake Charles, Westlake, and Sulphur to read the document. You can also access it online at www.i10lakecharles.com. The following section summarizes the major effects and identifies issues raised by agencies and the public. The section also discusses plans for minimizing or mitigating adverse effects. A handout with a matrix is available for you to review the environmental effects of each alternative side by side with the no-build alternative. A red highlighted result identifies a comparatively substantive impact on the resource or issue listed. Green identifies the least impact or most benefit. No highlights in a cell means the alternative results are neither best case nor worst case. The no-build alternative is an analysis of what would happen in the future if nothing is done. It serves as a baseline or benchmark to compare the three alternatives. Even though the no-build alternative might appear to be the best case in some instances, this alternative would not and does not meet the project's purpose and need. Project team members are available at Station 6 to answer your questions about the information in the matrix and how each alternative compares to the others. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act protects historic and cultural resources and ensures that they are taken into consideration at all levels of the project. 3 Section 106 resources were determined to be adversely affected by the project: the existing I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge, the US 90 overpass bridge near PPG Drive, and the Norris Point Archaeological Site. The Louisiana State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO, agreed that this project would have no adverse effects on historic above-ground resources other than these bridges, both of which are covered by the DOTD's Historic Bridge Programmatic Agreement, or PA. SHPO also agreed that replacement of these two bridges is the most appropriate action. Both bridges were offered for relocation through DOTD's Historic Bridge Marketing webpage. The Norris Point Archaeological Site is within the new right-of-way for the replacement I-10 bridge, but it is not sufficiently intact to be considered significant. Data recovery of artifacts for curating and study has been selected as appropriate mitigation for this site. Section 4F of the Transportation Act is another law that protects certain properties. Section 4F requires consideration of the adverse effect on occupancy of properties, known by its legal term of use by a transportation project. Section 4F recreational properties at the Lake Charles lakefront were identified, but it was determined that these would not be used by the project. Section 4F also does not apply to the boat launch under the I-10 bridge on North Lakeshore Drive because the boat launch will be closed. LADOTD is the owner of this boat launch, and it determined that the launch is not significant. FHWA concurred that Section 4F does not apply to this property. FHWA also evaluated and approved the use of the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge and the US 90 overpass because there are no feasible and prudent alternatives to the use of these bridge structures. Copies of the evaluations and approvals are available at Station 6 and in Appendix N of the DEIS located in Station 8. Because Alternatives 3A and 3E propose to cross the river and build an elevated structure through underdeveloped forested wetland in Lake Charles, they would cause more impacts to protected habitats than Alternative 5G. Other natural resource issues considered were air quality, water quality, including public water wells and farmlands. Traffic noise was modeled for existing and future conditions with and without the proposed project. Model results show that Alternative 5G would cause the fewest number of receptors to be impacted by noise. A receptor is the location of a noise-sensitive area, such as a residence, church, business, or park. When traffic noise impacts are identified, noise abatement will be considered and evaluated for feasibility and reasonableness. Noise barriers, or noise walls, are the most common method used to lessen traffic noise. Analysis determined that noise abatements are likely, but not guaranteed, by building noise walls at 3 locations south of I-10 near Enterprise Boulevard, as shown on this map. Most of the noise barriers will be structure-mounted. The noise barrier at location EB2A will be 12 feet tall. The noise barrier at location EB2D and EB2E will range from 12 and 14 feet tall. The noise barrier at location EB2F, shown in red on this map, will be 14 feet tall and will be a combination of ground-mounted and structure-mounted. And the noise barrier at location EB3A and EB3B will range from 10 to 14 feet tall. All bridges are considered navigation obstructions and are tolerated only as long as they serve the needs of land transportation and allow for the reasonable needs of navigation. vertical clearance of the replacement I-10 bridge would be lowered from 135 feet to 73 feet. This clearance applies to all three alternatives. The UP Railroad Bridge north of I-10 would not change and would keep its unlimited vertical clearance when it is open. Alternatives 3A and 3E would introduce a third bridge, which would be movable north of the UP Bridge. Two navigation interests with locations upriver in North Lake Charles would be affected by this vertical clearance change. Mitigation to address impacts to their operations is being developed. Traffic analysis confirmed that all alternatives would meet the project purpose and need for reducing overall traffic congestion. Bottlenecks at Sampson Street and the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge would be mitigated, and traffic operations would be equal or better than the no-build alternative. Backups that would potentially affect the I-10 main line in the future without the project would be resolved by all build alternatives. Random disruptions from freight trains that cross on the UP and KCS tracks at Sampson Street is a major traffic issue. Alternative 5G has the advantage of raising Sampson Street on structure and crossing over the railroads. It would also avoid the addition of a third movable bridge, which would cause random traffic disruptions. A disadvantage of Alternative 5G is that it would require the existing railroad spur tracks to be relocated. The proposed clearance at the current location does not allow trains to pass under the new bridge approach. Relocation options were presented to the railroads and to Westlake leaders. The UP spur would move east for all options. 3 options were presented to KCS. Railroad relocation number 2 was identified as the option that would best serve all interests. As shown here, 3 existing crossings would be closed, and a total of 6 new or existing crossings would be improved with warning gates and flashers. The tracks south of Isle of Capri Boulevard, which are currently out of service, would be rehabilitated and put back into use for KCS. Another disadvantage of Alternative 5G would be the closure of Sampson Street temporarily during construction. At a meeting with Westlake leaders and stakeholders, this issue was discussed. If Alternative 5G were built, Sampson Street would be completely closed for a period of approximately 18 months. During this period, the main span of the new interchange would be constructed and tied into the new I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge. Traffic between Sulphur Avenue and I-10 would have to detour, as shown here. On the interstate, 2 lanes of traffic in either direction would remain open during construction. Occasional and short-term closures would occur as needed. As you will see on the impact matrix in your handout, a number of other issues were considered and compared. Residential neighborhood impacts from street connection closures, noise barriers, and control of access implementation were all identified in the draft EIS. Visual effects, both beneficial and adverse, from sections of the project that will be elevated on structure will be addressed during final design. Concerns about the design of the new I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge and the addition of bicycle and pedestrian facilities will continue to be discussed with local sponsors represented by the Metropolitan Planning Organization, formerly known as the Imperial Calcasieu Planning Commission, or IMCAL. Business and residential displacements will be addressed by the LADOTD Real Estate Division. A representative is available to discuss right-of-way acquisition and relocation assistance process at Station 7. Actions to minimize disturbing groundwater and soils are being planned, and those actions will be incorporated into the contractor's work plan. Soil and groundwater sampling and air quality monitoring will be conducted during all ground-disturbing activities. Further evaluation for ROW, property acquisitions, will be undertaken as needed. A workers' safety and protection plan will be developed, and workers will be trained to comply with the plan and execute emergency responses as needed. The appropriate personnel protective equipment, PPE, will be provided. Another issue is how the public will be affected by tolling of the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge. A feasibility and revenue analysis was performed showing that nominal toll rates would provide substantial revenue for funding of the replacement bridge. Although actual toll rates have not been determined, a special toll rate not to exceed $2.88 in 2021 dollars for local automobiles has been established. Tolls will be collected electronically. To capture the discount, local autos will have to use a transponder. Non-local vehicles will pay rates established by LADOTD and the P3 concessionaire. If they do not have a transponder, these vehicles will be photographed and sent an invoice. All crossings of the Calcasieu River would be tolled, no matter which alternative is selected. The only toll-free route will be I-10 and the much longer detour to the north through Moss Bluff. Tolling will cause some traffic to divert away from I-10 to avoid paying the toll. The tolling analysis also predicted that most of the traffic diverting would use I-10. A preferred alternative has been recommended. The basis for this recommendation is detailed in the draft EIS. Based on comparison of the three alternatives and public local input, Alternative 5G is identified as the preferred alternative for the I-10 Calcasieu Bridge Improvements Project. A list of reasons for this identification is provided in your handout. The full extent of the I-10 Calcasieu Bridge Improvements Project will be built in two phases. The first phase includes the new I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge and improvements from I-210 West End to Ryan Street. Tolling will commence as soon as the new bridge is opened as part of the project's financing package. After the combined FEIS and ROD is issued, the P3 developer will complete the final design and permitting, then construct, operate, and maintain the facility and collect tolls for a period of 40 to 50 years. No schedule for the second phase of the project from Ryan Street to US 171 has been decided. LADOTD has prepared a brochure about how its acquisition of right-of-way and relocation assistance program is implemented. Please see the real estate representative at Station 7 to ask questions about the process and for a copy of the brochure. Any individual, family, business, or farm displaced by a federal or federally assisted program shall be offered relocation assistance services for the purpose of locating a suitable replacement property. Any individual with a disability will be provided the assistance needed to locate and move to a replacement dwelling or site. The individual should notify LADOTD of any special requirements for assistance. Relocation services are provided by qualified personnel employed by LADOTD. It is their goal and desire to be of service to you and assist in any way possible to help you successfully relocate. Remember, the LADOTD's representative is here to help and advise you, so please be sure to make full use of their services. Ask questions and be sure you understand all your rights and benefits. There are 3 steps to the acquisition process. First, Owners of required properties may be contacted by an appraiser or appraisers and given the opportunity to go with them on the inspection of the property. This will provide owners an opportunity to point out things that may be important to the evaluation of the property. Second, all evaluations will then be reviewed by a review appraiser and approved by LADOTD. Third, after review and approval, a real estate agent will contact each property owner and present a letter setting forth the amount of LADOTD's cash offer for the purchase of the property. The agent will also explain the property value and discuss any alternate offers, including possible options to keep and move any buildings or fencing or other items associated with the property. Relocation advisory services are available. These services include current and continuing information on the availability and prices of comparable, decent, safe, and sanitary dwellings, comparable commercial properties, and locations for displaced businesses. Other services include supplying information concerning finance charges and federal and state programs that offer assistance to displaced persons. Relocation assistance payments are separate and additional to payments made by the department for the purchase of your property. These include moving expense payments, replacement housing payments, and business reestablishment expense payments. Displaced businesses, farms, and nonprofit organizations may be paid the actual reasonable expenses of moving, together with certain eligible costs incidental to the move. Some businesses may also be eligible for certain actual costs incidental to reestablishing their businesses. Instead of payment for moving expenses, some business owners may be eligible to receive a payment based on the average annual net earnings of the business. If the business meets the qualifications, this payment shall not be less than $1,000 or more than $40,000. Moving payment information for businesses may be found beginning on page 22 of the relocation brochure. Replacement housing payments are also available to qualifying owners and tenants. 3 of the basic requirements are as follows. First, you must be occupying the property at the start of negotiations. Second, you must have been there at least 90 days. And third, you must move into decent, safe, and sanitary replacement housing. The amount of your maximum supplemental payment will be given to you in writing. Additional requirements and payment limits may be found beginning on page 14 of the relocation brochure. Certain owners and tenants not in occupancy for at least 90 days or who become occupants after negotiations have started are entitled to relocation assistance advisory services. 2 of the basic requirements are that you must have been in occupancy at the time the property was acquired by the department, and you must move into decent, safe, and sanitary replacement housing. Applicants for a relocation payment have the right to appeal the department's determination of their eligibility for payment and/or the amount of payment. Appeals must be submitted to the right-of-way regional manager or the right-of-way consultant project manager within 60 days after the applicant has been notified that his or her claim was not approved. Final decisions on eligibility and payments will be made by the department's real estate administrator in Baton Rouge. Additional information on appeals may be found on page 26 of the relocation brochure. To the greatest extent practicable, no person lawfully occupying real property shall be required to move without at least 90 days written notice from the department. The notice will indicate the specific date the property must be vacated. No person lawfully occupying a dwelling will be required to move unless and until comparable, decent, safe, and sanitary replacement housing is made available within the general area of the project. Replacement housing must be available within a reasonable time prior to the scheduled move of the occupants, and it must be within the occupant's financial means. Replacement housing must be fair, open, and offered to all persons regardless of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Prior to the negotiating for purchase of your property, a representative of the department will personally contact and interview all persons who will be required to relocate. Benefits will be explained, and a determination will be made of individual needs and intentions for relocating. A special word of caution: relocation benefits cannot be paid until the property is acquired by the department. Before moving or purchasing replacement housing, contact the department to assure your eligibility and the prompt payment of your relocation benefits. If you move or purchase replacement housing without prior notification to the department, you risk losing all possible benefits provided by the Relocation Assistance Program. Tonight's open house public hearing is your chance to review the draft EIS, view exhibits, ask questions, and make comments. All comments received tonight and through December 23rd will be included in the public hearing transcript. The public comment period closes on January 3rd, 2023. All comments received through that date will be addressed in a single document issued by FHWA that consists of the final EIS or FEIS and the ROD. The combined FEIS-ROD will address all comments and identify changes and updates. The combined FEIS-ROD will also include final selection of the alternative, modifications to the project after the draft EIS, final mitigation measures, and a summary of tonight's open house public hearing. The combined FEIS-ROD is expected to be completed and issued in summer 2023. It is anticipated that final mitigation and permitting, along with execution of all funding and financing agreements, will be in place by the end of 2024. Final design and construction is expected to begin sometime in 2025. Acquisition of right-of-way for Phase 1 of the project may begin after the FEIS-ROD is issued. The P3 will operate and maintain the project for a period of 50 years, after which it will be returned to the public sector. Tonight's public comment portion begins at 6:30 p.m. This is your chance to make your voice heard in front of an audience. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. If you have additional comments, you can also call us, send us an email, or visit the I-10 Lake Charles website and click on the Tell Us What You Think bubble to leave your comment there. Remember, the comment period lasts until January 3rd, 2023, so let us hear from you.